and our living standards have fallen by 8.7%. It's higher than during the recession in the 80s or the 90s. At the same time, the government is being accused of raiding the Future Fund for its political pet projects. And voters are pretty angry about all this. Well, Sky News Business Editor Ross Greenwood, I'm thrilled to say, joins me here now. Ross, we'll get to Wayne Swan and the Future Fund in a minute, but I want to start with this report that we've seen on the weekend, that our living standards are now worse than in the 50s. Can you talk us about why this is?
Yeah, so what's happened is inflation in Australia has really hurt people. But it's not just that, it's the amount of tax that the government is taking out of people's pockets that has risen. So the government tax take right now is at a record level and is only going to get higher from here. So while the good news is that people have got jobs in Australia, people need to have jobs, because if the unemployment rate were to rise, as say even the Reserve Bank suggests by the end of this year should be 4.5%, it's 4.1% now, you put another 100,000 families without an income, you've got some real economic problems that the Albanese government would have to face. Now, the fact is that they're taking record amounts of tax out, despite the fact that we have got almost near record low unemployment rates. And so the real pressure on families is coming from all of the costs and from interest rates staying too high for too long, because inflation hasn't come down quickly. So this is the real problem for Australian families. They need two incomes in capital cities to be able to afford mortgages, to be able to afford the cost of living. And so there is real pressure on families right now. They feel it very much so, especially if a job is lost or if a marriage busts up. They're where the real pain points will come into the future.
And then you look at how Australia compares with other OECD nations already now, but also the forecasts. And, you know, we're just worse. So
go back pre-pandemic. Disposable incomes in Australia have fallen by 2%. The average of the other OECD countries has them rising by 7.7%. So you see the real issue here is that in Australia there is a fundamental problem. Now, though Australia has not slipped into an official recession, 2 consecutive quarters where the economy goes backwards, which other nations did because they pushed interest rates up faster, and as a result now taking pressure off by cutting interest rates, although for how long we'll find out. Here in Australia, they took a different course. The government and the Reserve Bank then tried to keep as many people in jobs as possible by basically keeping interest rates not as high as others, didn't plunge the economy in recession. But guess what happened? The individual, the household, has been in recession for months and months and months now. And that's what consumers are feeling. That's what people are feeling. That's the reason why you've got restaurants going out of business around Australia right now, because people do not have the disposable income to be able to go out and spend on those types of luxuries. Yeah,
the per capita recession, and it's just immigration really that's helped prop up the overall figures. Now, I want to ask you about Cbus chairman Wayne Swan. Now, this is a big scandal.
The former federal treasurer, the Euro money Treasurer of the Year, or Finance Minister of the Year at one stage.
Yeah, well, indeed, as he liked to tell everyone, the best treasurer in the world. Now, he has been called to appear in front of a Senate committee that's investigating the allegations that Cbus mishandled the death and disability payouts. Now, we're told that he wrote, and I'm quoting here, that he would not be in a position to add anything further to the areas of particular interest to the committee at this time. Surely he should appear, Ross, given he's the chairman.
Yeah, well, Cbus is one of Australia's biggest superannuation funds. It has $94 billion that it manages, and it has 920,000 members. So it represents a lot of Australia. Now, just one little side to this is that Cbus actually also runs the Media Super, the superannuation fund. So Media Super, which I used to be the chairman of the investment committee and I was the director of for years. So I know a little bit about this. But what's happened is there's two things that are going. Number one is, and this is the issue that you're pointing out, is that Cbus basically is said by ASIC, the Australian corporate regulator, that they mishandled almost 100,000 people who came forward with claims for either insurance, life insurance, or disability insurance. In actual fact, what happened was that Cbus did not get back to them in a prompt and timely manner as they're supposed to do within 90 days. So as a result, there's something in the administration of that fund that has not gone well. But then secondarily to this, there's another issue, a separate issue which has come up. And this is as a result of its close alliance with the CFMEU, clearly one of the most militant unions. Now, the Victorian branch of the CFMEU has been sent into administration. And as a result, 3 members of Cbus, who are appointed by the union, have had to quit, one of whom is Dave Noonan, very well-known unionist. He did not go willingly. But what they've done is that they've put other members into place, as they're entitled to do. One of those is Paddy Crumlin, who is the former head of the Maritime Union, right? One of the most militant unionists in Australia. And there are question marks about the appropriateness of the directors that have been appointed to this board. So Wayne Swan right now is grappling with one issue on administration, that they did not pay out the life insurance
political crisis
policies,
as well.
And then they've got the other crisis that comes from the collapse of the CFMEU. See, Cbus, being one of our most powerful unions, tells businesses how they should behave and how they should react. And right now, inside that superannuation fund, they have their own crisis in terms of governance and culture and the way in which they should behave and whether they have behaved appropriately, which is now being investigated not only by the superannuation regulator, APRA, but also by the corporate regulator, ASIC. So this is pretty serious for Wayne Swan.
And set an inquiry to top it off.
That's right. Who cops, I should tell you, about $250,000 a year for being the chair of that super fund.
He definitely needs to front up if he's getting paid that sort of money. All right, Ross Greenwood, we'll talk about Future Fund next time because I know you're an expert on that as well. Thanks for your time.
Quite okay.